Okay, so let's unpack this. It is February 2026. And I want to start today by calling out a feeling that I think a lot of you are having, even if you don't say it out loud at dinner parties.
Oh, I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. It's that quiet, nagging voice in the back of your head. Maybe you hear it when you scroll through LinkedIn or see yet another news headline. And it's basically just saying, you missed the boat.
Yeah, it is that pervasive panic of, is it too late? And honestly, looking at the landscape right now, it's right on schedule.
It feels like we blinked, doesn't it? Suddenly, everyone else seems to be an expert. You look around and people are building autonomous agents, or they're automating their entire workflow. They're generating feature films from a single text prompt.
And meanwhile, some of us are just standing on the sidelines wondering if we can even catch up. Or if we should just sort of resign ourselves to being dinosaurs at this point.
Exactly. It's a paralyzing feeling. You see the gap widening, and instead of jumping in, you just freeze.
Yeah.
And that is exactly why we pulled this specific document for today's deep dive.
Right. What we have here is a transcript from a 30-day AI series. But we aren't looking at the whole series today. We're actually zooming in specifically on day 4.
Which might seem a bit arbitrary to start on day 4,
Hmm.
but it's actually the most critical pivot point in the whole curriculum.
It really is, because usually day 1 is the big welcome to the future speech.
Yeah.
Lots of hype.
Yeah, day 1 is always the hype. And then day 2 and 3 are often about specific tools, like look at this cool image generator, or look at this impressive new chatbot.
But day 4 in this series, it stops the car entirely. It shifts from look at this cool toy to addressing the single biggest hurdle for beginners.
And spoiler alert for everyone listening, it is not a technical hurdle.
No, not at all. It's entirely mental. It tackles the fundamental question of where do I even start?
Which, let's be honest, is the only question that matters right now. Because usually the answer you get from the tech bros or the ultra experts is, oh, just learn Python.
Mm.
Or go study how large language models handle weights and biases.
And that is the exact moment your brain decides to check out.
Yeah, I just go watch Netflix when I hear that. It's way too overwhelming.
Exactly. So the mission of this deep dive today is to extract the roadmap provided in this source, because it is shockingly non-technical. The core argument here is that AI isn't about coding anymore. It's about communication.
I really love that framing. So the premise is that AI is no longer optional. We all know that by now. But the advice on how to start has just been way too complex.
Correct. The focus of this specific source is simplifying the complex. It's all about stripping away the noise so you can actually get moving.
So let's dive right into the psychology of this. Because the text makes a distinction right off the bat that I found incredibly helpful, especially for people who feel intimidated.
You're talking about the difference between complicated and unfamiliar?
Yes, this is a massive distinction.
Yeah.
The source argues that beginners make a fundamental categorization error. They look at AI, this massive, sprawling technology, and they label it as complicated.
And to be fair, if you look at the architecture of a neural network, it is complicated.
Under the hood, absolutely. But for the user, the source argues it's not complicated, it's just unfamiliar. And the problem is that our brains wire unfamiliarity directly to intimidation.
It uses a great analogy that really clicked for me. The difference between a cockpit and a microwave.
Oh yes, I love this one. Walk us through that.
So if you walk into the cockpit of a 747 airplane, that is complicated. You need years of physics and rigorous training to touch a single button without crashing the plane.
Right. I am not touching anything in a cockpit.
But if you walk into a kitchen and see a high-tech Japanese microwave you've never seen before, it has a lot of buttons, sure, it looks weird, but it's
Now-
not complicated.
Yeah, I don't need a degree in thermodynamics to heat up my leftovers. I just need to figure out which button is the start button.
Precisely, you just haven't pressed the buttons yet. That is unfamiliarity. And the source explicitly busts the myth that you need a tech background to use AI.
It says it very clearly. You don't need to code. You don't need to build software. You don't need a degree in computer science to get value out of this.
So if you don't need those things, what do you need?
Well, the text lists only one actual requirement, a willingness to experiment.
That's it. I mean, it sounds almost too simple.
It sounds simple, but think about why people don't do it. The source argues that smart people, professionals who are experts in their own fields, are actually more prone to getting stuck here
Wait, really? Why would smart people struggle more with this?
because they're used to being experts. They are used to knowing the answer. So when they face something completely unfamiliar, they don't see it as a fun learning opportunity. They see it as a potential failure.
Oh, wow. So they aren't stalling because it's hard. They're stalling because they don't want to look like a rookie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just the ego protecting itself.
Mm.
The logic is if I don't try, then I can't be bad at it.
It's the monster under the bed. It's incredibly scary until you just turn the lights on.
Right, so let's turn the lights on. The source gives us a roadmap. And step one is, well, it's kind of counterintuitive. In fact, when I first read it, I actually thought it was terrible advice.
It does sound backwards at first glance. Step one is literally don't try to learn AI.
Which feels entirely wrong. We're doing a deep dive on how to start with AI, and the advice is don't learn it.
It's a paradox for sure, but let's look at what the text actually says. It suggests integration over education,
Meaning what exactly?
meaning don't treat AI as a separate subject to study. Don't set aside AI study time like you would if you were learning French or calculus.
Because if you do that, it just becomes a chore. It becomes this heavy thing on your to-do list that you can constantly procrastinate on.
Oh, I'll get to the AI module on Saturday, and then
Yeah.
Saturday comes and you go to brunch instead.
Exactly. Instead, the instruction is to use AI for things you are already doing.
Yeah.
This is the key. The text explicitly says do not invent new tasks.
So don't go into a chat bot and say, write me a poem about a pirate just to see if it works.
Right. That's a toy.
Yeah.
That's not integration. The source gives very specific examples. If you have to write an email for work, a real, actual email, open the tool and use it to draft that specific email.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you create content, use it to outline. If you run a business, use it to brainstorm. If you are a student or a researcher, use it to summarize your notes.
I really like the summarized notes example. That feels very low stakes.
It is. You already have the notes. You just need them shorter. It's a 5-second task. But by doing it, you're building the neural pathway in your own brain that says AI is a tool I use, not AI is a thing I need to learn.
It completely changes the stakes. You aren't sitting down to build a neural network. You're just sitting down to do the work you had to do anyway, but you're bringing a very capable buddy along to help.
And notice the pattern there. In every single case, the user was going to do the task anyway. They aren't inventing work. And that leads to the source's main takeaway for step one. Skill comes from repetition.
It's exactly like learning to type. You didn't learn to type by reading a textbook about keyboards.
No, you learned by typing essays or chatting on Instant Messenger until your fingers just memorized where the keys were. You learned by doing the thing.
Precisely. Step one is about making AI invisible. It shouldn't be a grand event. It should just be the way you write emails now.
Okay, so step one is integration. Just use it on what you're already doing. But here's the problem I ran into, and I think a lot of listeners run into this too. You try step one. You say, okay, I'll use it to write this blog post. And the output is just absolute garbage.
It's generic. It's boring.
It sounds like a corporate robot wrote it.
Yeah?
And you think, well, this tool is useless, and you just quit.
That is the classic drop-off point for beginners. And that brings us directly to step two in the text. The source calls this asking better questions.
This is where we move from just randomly using the tool to actually mastering it.
The source is very clear on this rule. AI responds to clarity. If you put in garbage, you get out garbage.
It gives a really specific example of this, a contrast between a bad prompt and a good prompt. I want to actually read these out because the difference is wild.
Please do. Let's start with the bad one.
The bad prompt is simply, write me something, or write a post about AI.
Okay, so let's analyze that. What is the AI supposed to do with that? It has no context. It has no goal. So it just gives you the average of the entire internet.
Which is usually mediocre fluff.
Right. Now look at the alternative the text provides. The good prompt.
Okay, listen to the difference here. The good prompt is write a persuasive Instagram caption targeting first-time entrepreneurs who are afraid of AI.
The difference really is night and day.
It's not just that it has more words, it has much more structure.
It's doing three specific things that the bad prompt entirely missed. First, it sets a persona or a tone. Persuasive, it tells the AI exactly how to speak.
Right.
Second, it defines the format, Instagram caption. That tells the AI about the hashtags and the stylistic conventions of that platform.
But the third one is the real kicker for me.
The target audience, first-time entrepreneurs who are afraid.
That is just so incredibly specific. Entrepreneurs who are afraid. That gives the AI crucial emotional context. It knows it needs to be reassuring or empowering instead of just listing facts.
Exactly, and this raises an important point about what learning AI actually means. The source argues that learning AI is really just learning how to communicate clearly.
So it's not a technical skill at all, it's a language skill.
It is strategic thinking. When you look at that detailed prompt, It required the human to know what they actually wanted. You can't ask for a persuasive caption targeting afraid entrepreneurs if you haven't decided that's who you are targeting.
That is such a crucial point. If I don't know who my target audience is, I certainly can't tell the AI.
Correct. The source implies that AI actually forces the user to sharpen their own human thinking. If the output is bad, it is highly likely because the user's request was vague. The AI acts as a mirror for your own clarity of thought.
So if the AI is giving me generic fluff, it's essentially my fault because I gave it a generic instruction.
Precisely. You can't just wave your hands and say, make it good. You have to define what good means for the specific situation.
That puts the responsibility back on us, which is actually really empowering. It means I don't need to learn to code.
Yeah.
I just need to learn how to articulate what I want in plain English.
And that is a skill you can practice every single day.
Which brings us perfectly to step 3. We have integration, we have clarity. Now we need a schedule. The source calls this daily exposure.
This touches on the 15-minute rule.
I really love this rule. Because usually when you start something new, like a New Year's resolution, you think, okay, I need to clear my schedule. I need to dedicate 4 solid hours on Saturday to watch tutorials.
And the source says absolutely not. That is the fast path to burnout.
Right. It says consistency over intensity.
The prescription is highly specific. 15 minutes a day, not 5 hours once a week. Just 15 minutes.
And what are we supposed to be doing in those 15 minutes? Just scrolling through options?
No, the text lists the activities clearly, ask questions, test ideas, challenge it.
Challenge it. I like that phrasing. It means it's not just passive consumption.
Yeah, treat it like a very smart but inexperienced intern. Don't just take the first answer it gives you. Say, that's too formal, make it funnier. Or, are you sure about that statistic? Check it again.
But is 15 minutes really enough? It feels like that's not enough time to actually learn a complex new skill.
It is enough to break the fear. And this leads directly to the emotional aspect the source brings up, which I think is vital. The host in the transcript mentions the embarrassment of starting something new.
Oh yes, the shame factor. Especially now in 2026. You feel like, I should really know this by now. It feels so awkward to be the rookie in the room.
The source addresses this head-on with a phrase that I think is the anchor of the whole document.
You're not late. You're just untrained.
Let's really sit with that for a second. You're not late. You're just untrained.
It completely flips the narrative. Because late feels permanent. Late feels like I missed the train and it's gone and I'm permanently stranded on the platform.
Exactly. Late implies a failure of timing that simply cannot be fixed, but untrained.
Untrained is just a temporary state. I can get trained.
Training is a decision you can make today. The source emphasizes that this rephrase removes the shame entirely. It shifts the problem from who you are, a failure, to what you have done, not trained yet.
That is so incredibly liberating.
And the source also throws in a reality check about everyone else. It says comparison kills progress.
Oh, looking at LinkedIn is just the worst for this.
Yes, it is. It notes that most people, the exact people you are jealous of, are just consuming content about AI. They are watching videos, reading headlines, nodding along in meetings, but very few are actually mastering the daily use of it.
That is so reassuring to hear. It's the difference between watching a cooking show and actually chopping an onion.
Yeah.
Most people are just sitting on the couch watching the show.
Correct. The source argues that the space is still very early. If you start your 15 minutes today, you aren't trying to catch up to millions of experts. You are actually passing the vast majority of people who are just spectators.
I love that perspective. So we have the 3 foundational steps: integration, clarity, and exposure. But then the source pivots to looking forward. It talks about focus.
This is the strategy for the long haul. Once you get over that initial fear, the advice is don't try to learn everything.
Which is my default setting, unfortunately. I want to learn video generation and text and coding and music and autonomous agents.
And that is exactly how you end up in tutorial hell, accomplishing absolutely nothing. The source says, pick a lane.
It lists a few specific areas to choose from. AI for business, AI for productivity, AI for design, AI for automation.
The underlying logic here is depth versus width. The source argues that depth creates confidence, and confidence creates real momentum.
Because if I try to learn everything, I'll just stay shallow in everything.
Exactly. But if you focus entirely on mastering AI for business, for example, you actually become proficient. You see real, tangible results.
So what happens if we actually do this? The source paints a picture of the 6-month horizon. What happens after 6 months of 15 minutes a day?
The text uses a great descriptor here. It says you become dangerous, in a good way.
Dangerous. I definitely want to be dangerous. What does that actually look like, practically speaking?
It lists very specific outcomes. After 6 months, you could be building your own AI-powered systems. You could be offering AI services to clients.
Which is a whole new income stream for a lot of people.
You could be cutting your daily work time in half, or, and this is a big one socially, you become the go-to AI person in your professional circle.
That brings up the leverage the expert speaker in the source talks about, right?
Yes. The concept of leverage is absolutely key here. Because this is a new technology ways, a very small amount of focused effort yields disproportionate results.
Right. Spending 6 months learning to use a typewriter in 2026. Zero leverage. Nobody cares. Spending 6 months mastering AI agents. Massive leverage.
Exactly. You are riding a wave rather than swimming upstream. You are positioning yourself where the value is going, not where it used to be.
So let's bring this down to earth for you listening right now. We've talked about the psychology,
Yeah.
the steps, and the outcome. But the source ends with a very specific challenge.
It does. It calls it the Day 4 challenge.
And I want everyone listening to actually do this. Don't just nod along while you're driving and then queue up the next deep dive.
The challenge is immediately after this deep dive ends, open an AI tool. Any tool. ChatGPT, Claude, whatever you have on your phone right now.
And ask it to help you with something real.
Not a test. Not tell me a joke.
No. Use it for something practical you need to do today. A real email you've been putting off, a difficult conversation you need to script out, a strategy document you're stuck on.
And do that every single day for a week. Just one real task per day.
That is how you break the unfamiliarity barrier we talked about at the start.
And remember the core mantra from the text. You are not late. You are just untrained.
I think that's going to be my personal mantra for the rest of the year. I'm not late. I'm just untrained.
It really is a powerful place to start from.
So what does this all mean for us at the end of the day? We often think the barrier to the future is technology, that the machines are just too smart or the code is too hard for us to grasp. But if we really listen to what this source is telling us, the barrier isn't the tech at all.
No, it really isn't.
The actual barrier is ego.
It is. It's the pride that stops us from being beginners again.
It's the unwillingness to look foolish for 15 minutes a day. It's the fear of asking a bad question and getting a generic answer. But if the primary skill of the future is simply clear communication and a willingness to experiment, then what is actually stopping you?
That is the big question everyone needs to answer for themselves today.
Exactly. So go open that tool. Be willing to be untrained for a few minutes so you can be dangerous in 6 months. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.